Good evening. This is the Mount Escutney School District monthly meeting on Monday, May 9th. We are a little bit early this evening at 6:07 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. We have a couple of changes to the agenda this evening, starting with moving the conflict of interest discussion up to the top of the discussion pile. And are there any other changes to the agenda that anybody would like to make?
Elizabeth, we'll need to add, I'm trying to pull the agenda up now, we'll need to add under items for action, the appointment of Sergio's appointment.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Then let's move on to the approval of minutes. Did everybody on the board have a chance to look at our minutes from our last meeting? Nancy, I see your hand.
I have a change on the minutes. She put the vote to have a hearing for the conflict of interest, and the vote was not unanimous. There was one no, and the rest were incorrect in the minutes.
I will proudly take responsibility for that no vote.
Does anybody else have an amendment to the minutes from our last meeting? Yes, Nancy.
I move to accept the minutes.
Okay, Nancy has moved to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Let's see. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
And let's see. Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
I am also an aye. So that's a unanimous acceptance of the minutes. Let's see, moving on to our public participation. Hold on one second, please. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The board will not necessarily respond to public comment. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to say something or announce something? David Baker.
Yeah, I'm proud to announce we offered. I'm going to take my hand down. We offered the position of the third administrator. You remember the board, in its wisdom, felt that the school, Windsor School, was getting too big for two administrators, and you budgeted for another administrator. And we went on a pretty extensive search. We had quite a few applicants. We had probably 6 that were qualified. We interviewed them, got it down to, there was a screening committee that got it down to 3. Then the administrators took it from there. We brought it down to 2. We had a site visit, school visits, and I'm proud to announce tonight that the person who survived all of that interviewing and visiting and all that stuff was Sergio Simonovic. I don't know if I did that right, but Simonovic. The C is hard at the end. The kids call him Mr. S. I think from this point forward, I will call him Mr. S. And he definitely showed an awful lot of experience. And I certainly don't know if any of the other administrators want to speak to it. I put the resume in the chat. He comes to us currently after being principal of the Kern-Hatton day. They have a day school at Kern-Hatton and a residential program, but he's been the principal there for 5 years. He also has been an academic dean at the Greenwood School. He has a strong background in working with kids in somewhat creative ways and unconventional ways, and all of his references were strong. And he also served on the school board at Putney Town School District for 2 years, and they were kind of a tough 2 years because it was right during the sort of middle to end of the Act 46 process. So he knows it from that end as well. So Sergio, I will publicly welcome you to our team. This is a great board to work with, and if any of the board members have any comments or questions, Rebecca was on the search team, and now would be the time to do that. But if not, I'll just say welcome, Sergio.
Thank you all for the privilege. I could not be more thrilled to be joining the Windsor team. It is clearly a cherished community school with an amazing group of educators. And again, I could not be more thrilled to be joining the team.
Welcome. Now, where do you reside?
I live in Putney, so
Okay.
just down the valley a little bit.
And hopefully before the end of the year or shortly into the new year, next school year, we can have more of a little gathering where we can spend some time with Sergio and he can give you a sense of his background. Jen knew him from one of her graduate programs. That wasn't why he applied or why he was accepted, but that was also a good connection.
Very good forward to that.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr.
Quick,
Oh.
Elizabeth, yeah, I would just say that I was on at least 2 of those interviews, and we had a lot of applicants, and Jennifer did a great job with the questions and shepherding through the committee, and Sergio, as far as the voting that we did, was far and above. He was, so I just want to say welcome and really excited, and I think he's going to do a great job, and I just want to let you know, as far as the committee was concerned, speaking for myself, but also the numbers that we looked at after the committee, Sergio was far and away the pick.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Sergio. Was somebody else saying something?
This is Amy.
Okay, Amy, I can't see you.
Yeah. I'm on the L.
Okay.
Oh, there she is.
I just want to welcome you to the Mount Escutney School District, Windsor, West Windsor community.
Thank you, everyone. I've felt the warm welcome everywhere, and once again, I'm just humbled to be a part of a great community school. I'm very much looking forward to working with you all on the school board, and certainly open and very much looking forward to connecting further and getting to know all of you as we go forth in this next school year.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Likewise.
We'll have to work that out. And And I think Sergio and I have talked, there'll be a couple of days, certainly before the end of the year. He starts officially July 1. But there'll be a couple of days when we'll do some transitional work. And he'll get together with Kate and Colleen and just to figure out some of the organizational and systemic pieces as we go forward. The big part of this was to make sure that we had one administrator dedicated at each of the levels, the elementary, the middle, and the high school. So one of the first steps will be to, Sergio's got a strong K-8 background, so he could do the elementary, he could do the middle. So I really think that's going to be in the hands of the administrative team to figure that out. But they're all committed to making sure they've got that designation next year.
Excellent. Nice work, everybody. All right. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, David.
Thank you all.
Take care. Does anybody else have any announcements or comments from the public? Okay. Then we will move on to the principal's report.
I will. Sorry. I'm going to try and share my screen. I don't know if Pete or Colleen are on yet. I haven't noticed them. Not yet. I'll give them a quick heads up. But while doing that, I will share. Beginning. Okay, so starting with Albert Bridge, lots of happenings over the last month since we last met. We have found a school counselor, which I have no idea how excited we are. He won't be starting till next year. His name is Andrew McPhillips. He did an intern with us a couple of years ago and is super excited to join our crew and has already started connecting with some of our students, or reconnecting, I should say, with some of our students. So that's really good news for the ABS community. We've done some revamping of recess in that we have the ability now to mix our pods. So we've realized that our kindergartners and first graders have never done any mixing of grades up to this point. And our second graders only had a little bit at the beginning of their kindergarten year, and everybody has been away from this mixing of age groups for a while. So what we've done is really back off and go back to a responsive classroom approach, really thinking about teaching and being proactive in how we work together, the kinds of things we do. So that has been going incredibly well. It's great to see kids playing together across ages, and a lot of the transition of, or transformation of learning as kids who are younger observe and start modeling those who are older is really exciting. And then those who are older, just seeing them step up to the plate, becoming leaders that we want them to be. We're moving away from our Maple unit, moving into our gardening units, our whole school place-based units. We did a full school field trip into Woodstock, and we went to see a Haitian ensemble perform, which was totally fantastic. Kids were dancing, and it was just wonderful to get the kids out again. Some of these kids have never been on a field trip. Some of them haven't even been on a bus for a few years. So it was just wonderful to connect as a community and to give them some exposure to something outside of our small school. We're working pretty diligently on developing restorative circles within our school community as an approach to addressing challenging situations that we believe are community-based situations. And we've been using a book called Circle Forward which is filled with a whole lot of wonderful resources on how to do specific types of restorative circles, and that's going incredibly well. Our 3rd through 6th graders have been working with Tracy Kohler, who's the library primarily over at Windsor, but she comes over to us one day a week, and she's been doing this fantastic robotics STEAM project, which once we get some good videos out there, we're going to share those with you. But I just want to let you know it's really exciting. The kids are so into it. It's pretty engaging for them. When we talk about student engagement, they're right there. And in fact, the 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade class trip, they want to explore more, having to do with coding, and particularly when it has to do with things like video games. Not a surprise, but they're really talking about how do you make these things happen. So that's very exciting. Walk and bike to school happened this past week. We changed it from Wednesday to Thursday. We were supported by our local police department. Chief Frank showed up, and our school resource officer, Paul Favreau, was there, and lots of community members, and it was great fun just rolling into the school with music going, kids just interacting and having a good time. And one of the kids afterwards, he said, "I'm so tired, I think I need a nap." And this is a kid who you would not imagine needs a nap. But it was great just to have them put that extra effort in before school starts. Teacher appreciation, big shout out to our skit community and April Sykes for really making our teachers aware that they are appreciated, even though they go day in and day out without needing the appreciation. I think it was just wonderful throughout the week to see them just being celebrated for being teachers, for being willing to do this job. We have seen some really great progress, and we'll do some more visuals with the Track My Progress. But what we did over this year is really focus each grade level around one thing that we really wanted to achieve. And I wanted to say that in our Track My Progress, we have done beyond expected growth in every category that we focused on. So that was really good news. One other thing that's not on here, but I may as well slip it in, is that we are hoping to have 5th and 6th grade do an out-of-state trip. 6th graders have traditionally gone to Boston. The 6th graders want to include the 5th graders in part of their trip. Not all of it, but part of their trip, because they're such a tight community. It's a small group. So I can put that proposal out if you guys would like it through your email to see if that's okay. Or if you'd like me to do that now, I'm happy to do that now. And then upcoming stuff for ABS. SBAC for not just ABS, but Windsor as well. Math and ELA are starting next week at ABS. We have Youth Feast with Mr. Rich, who has been with us before. He's going to be an artist in residence May 31st through June 3rd, ending with an all-school performance with not just Mr. Rich, but our music department is going to be doing some work, as well as a couple of kids who have some talent they want to share. Our Leader and Me Next Steps as a school. This is some of our summer work and going into next year is really trying to draw some through lines between responsive classroom, collaborative problem solving, our trauma-informed work, and portrait of a graduate. 6th grade graduation is June 15th. We're super excited about that. And let's see. Here is our K through 4 stuff for Windsor. And let's see. If I can just pause for a moment, I'm going to see if one of them is able to jump on.
Yeah, you know, and that, excuse me, that it might have been my fault, because much like Elizabeth said,
they also thought that we were starting with.
Yeah, they thought we were going to start with the conflict.
Done with their children's sports activities.
Yeah, because I knew they had some sports activities.
While we're waiting for one of them to jump on, would you like me to share the proposal for the 6th grade trip?
Yes. Where are you planning to go?
Oh, let's see. Can you try that again? Elizabeth, I couldn't hear that.
Oh, you couldn't hear me? Can you hear me right now?
Yep.
Where are you planning to go?
So they want to go to Boston. The sixth graders want to do the Boston trip. They want to go the Freedom Trail and make connections. We've got a couple of connections. One is the question of when is standing up or standing against authority a good thing? So that's one of our kind of guiding questions. And we're talking about the Revolutionary War and how we became separated from England. They want to go to the planetarium down at the Museum of Science. They've got a couple of really great exhibits specifically around our place in the universe and their interest in that. We're hoping to do something fun like the duck tours, which if you get a good leader, it can be thoroughly interesting and informative. Then with the fifth graders, we're hoping to do a hike by Lake Winnipesaukee. There's a specific trail that has some really good identifications of trees. And that connects to the fact that over this past couple of years, they've been doing a lot of identification as part of their play space with our local trees. And so we wanted to see what are similar and what are different and try to make some connections about why they might be different if they are different. And then near Lake Winnipesaukee is the Arcade Museum, which is 3 stories of one of historic arcade games dating back to the late 1970s, all the way up through, and then trampoline park for the traditional joy, which our 6th graders have usually done.
Will, I see your hand.
So the Boston trip, would that include both the museum and the Freedom Trail?
Yes.
I've done that.
That's a lot.
I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah, so we're not thinking of doing the actual Museum of Science. We would usually do that as an overnight, but right now the Museum of Science is not allowing overnight stuff.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is just the planetarium component.
Okay.
And then catch the duck tour from there and do a loop around.
Oh, but you're not planning on walking the Freedom Trail?
Yes. So when we first get there, we'll do the Freedom Trail through the Holocaust. There's the Holocaust Museum outside Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market area. And then go to the Museum of Science, do the planetarium, then do the duck tours, and then come home. And then the
If
next
anybody
day,
wants to ask, because I've done that before. Good luck.
yes, yeah, we've done a version of it every year that I've been here. So almost every year that I've been here. And this takes out the museum part of it because we can't do the overnight, which is usually when we get a lot of our museum time is when they after hours and before hours. It'll be like that.
Yeah, well, let me know if you need a chaperone for the tree identification trip. I find that interesting.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's great.
Amy, I see your hand, and then Rebecca.
So if you have good weather, you will have an excellent time.
Yes.
The last time I accompanied a class to Boston, it was to do part of the Freedom Trail, and it was a downpour, and it was kind of sad. But we still walked. I mean, they were game. I was probably more sad than the kids, but.
Yes, we've done it once in the rain since I've done the groups here. We have these beautiful umbrellas we can take, and we can always buy ponchos. But I found the kids are generally pretty just excited to be in the city, and not much dampens their spirits once you get there.
Yep, exactly.
Rebecca?
Jen, I was just going to ask how many students would be attending more or less, and chaperones. Do you have parents? And obviously you already have a volunteer.
Yeah, so with just the 6th graders going to Boston, there's only 4 6th graders that we have. And it's going to be myself and the classroom teacher will be going. On the next day when we go with the 5th graders, we're planning on having 8 students and 3 adults with us. but we can easily add an expert tree identifier to help us along the way. The trail that we were thinking of going on is called, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. It's called Locks Hill Trail. And my understanding from somebody who gave me some information about this is that it has some really nice information about the trees along the way. And we compared the trees that the kids are studying with the trees there and found enough differences that we think it'd be a pretty engaging conversation. Oh, if you would like, I can continue on through the Windsor stuff.
I'm here, Jen.
Oh, awesome. It's here.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we have a lot happening in our K4 because the end of the year is very exciting. So our kindergarten registration is set for this week, and I think we have about 20 kids coming registered so far next year. First grade, if you haven't seen this, it's worth a visit to the school. So they do a theme each Friday. So if it's a camping theme, when they go in the morning, it's all set up with tents. They do an ice cream day. It's just, I'll take pictures because it's really worth seeing. Second grade, hold on, I have to get my daughter to the bathroom. Second grade is doing a book goal, and if they read 150 books, then they're going to get a nature. They're doing this nature walk, and a lunch, a picnic lunch. Third just did a walking tour of Windsor, and that's really cool to see because there's some pictures there of the fourth grade doing the cleanup challenge, which was fun to watch from the inside because some of the stuff that they thought they found that were treasures were definitely just trash. I'm sure their parents were pleased that we got rid of it. At the 5-8, they are getting ready to do Adventure Day, which is like a mini kind of intensive. They're doing that on 7-8, so they can choose from bowling, hiking, grilling, mountain biking. 5-6 is still going strong with their author visits. They have one from London coming up tomorrow, and they're just wrapping up an activism book club and an environmental book club. Our passages is scheduled for June 13th, and there's more info on that coming out this week. Our high school happenings. I put a couple things in here that I thought that we had asked about. Bill, I was thinking of you when I put in our Hartford numbers for next year. So that is roughly almost 50% of our juniors that are going next year. Our March intensives have been moved to May intensives. It's full day trips and half day trips. Some are local. Some are, there's a group going to Boston. We did have a successful play. I hope some of you got to see it because it was really funny. And we had an anonymous donor donate the Ukraine flag, and it's flying high for the next 30 days. We just put it up on a beautiful day. There's some pictures there of the boys varsity baseball team, which was totally initiated by their coach, doing some cleanup around town. And we're getting ready to set up what credit recovery could look like for this summer. But we're also trying to find a way for the kids who just want to come anyway, come in, get a lunch, have a walk, trying to get those kids to school too this summer. So that's in process. We should have what that looks like by the next meeting.
So that's our principal's report. Any questions for us?
Davis, I see your hand, although you just took it down.
Oh, yeah, I just took it down because I saw you noticing it. Yeah, not so much a question as a comment for Jennifer. I'm really glad to hear that you started working with restorative circles at ABS. I was lucky enough to catch a presentation by one of the individuals who was behind the Longmont Community Restorative Justice Project out in Colorado, which is one of the first really widespread adoptions of that in the country, and so did really great things to the community. So I'll be interested to hear how that goes. I think it's a really great way of building conflict resolution into the school system, and that it can be a really good model for the entire community. So thanks for sharing that, and I hope that it yields great results.
Yes, we've had wonderful success with it so far, and it fits like a glove with our responsive classroom and our philosophy behind what we believe about kids and who we are as a community, where we don't want to believe that might makes right. We want to teach people to work together. So we're finding that it's labor intensive, but I would argue probably not compared to the labor intensive if we don't do the work.
Yep. Fantastic. Thank you.
Rebecca?
Oh, I'm sorry. I never took my mic off. I have a question for Kate. And Kate, I wondered if, and this is mostly for juniors and seniors, and I wonder if you know of or have heard of the Mcclure free degree program, which is a program that allows juniors students to graduate with an associate's degree, and I think they would start in their junior year.
Sorry, I don't know about it, but if you want to send me info, I'm happy to. Greg and Jess and I'll dive right into it.
Great, thanks.
The other thing I forgot to mention is please come to our community barbecue. It's May 25th. It's going to be a presentation of what collaborative problem solving, like little skits done by the kids at different grade levels to show what that looks like. And then we're going to have some games. I'm hoping for wiffle ball and cornhole, and we're going to have barbecue by Craig. So that's on the 25th. I'll send out a reminder as it gets closer. And that's for all residents of Windsor and West Windsor. You do not have to be connected to the school. So if you know of any neighbors or anyone wants to go, we're just trying to get a small head count. We send out a survey every week, so it'll be in the newsletter this week. But please make sure everyone knows they're included.
Kate, I've got a question.
Go for it.
If there's a community member who's not associated with the school, how do they get word to you that they want to attend?
You can just include them on the survey when it goes out, like if you know someone who's coming, because we don't need names. We just need like a general number, 150 people showing up, or 50.
Okay.
Tom will put it in the town newsletter. I don't know where I would send it to get it out to West Windsor residents, but if you want to tell me, I'm happy to.
I'd be glad to put it on our listserv.
I would really appreciate that. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for our principals? All right, hearing none. David, you're up with the superintendent's report. David, are you talking? Because we can't hear you.
He's muted.
Well, that's why nobody was answering me. I get it now. I leave my sound off when it's supposed to be on and the other way around. That's not good. All right, now everybody can see that, correct?
Yes.
All right. We needed a minute to take a breath anyhow, so that's good. All right, I'm going to be pretty quick here. Just some general updates. The equity audit proposals are back. We have a committee already identified. Rebecca's on the committee. Davis is going to be on that committee. And then there are a couple of other task force members. We wanted to keep it relatively small because remember, we're also doing this with Springfield. So, and what I'm really waiting for is for them to put their committee together. I don't know. I mean, I know Zach is, working on it, and if we don't have something by middle of this week, I mean, we may have to go forward with our committee and then just send our top one or two to them. We'll see how that goes. I'm just waiting to hear back from him. A shout out to Tina Canfield. She did a great job getting contracts out and contracts back. You can't imagine how much work it is. And also we had to update the contract so the language was similar, and also so it reflected the work that was done during negotiations. But the good news is contracts have been returned. We're only dealing with a few extension requests, which I think all of those ended last Friday. And there'll still be a little bit of hiring to do. And again, I would leave that up to Colleen and Kate and Jen to let you know what and probably Kate too, because I know she's got some special education hiring to do. So if anybody has questions about that at the end, we can let you know specifically what is to be hired. Friday, we had a parent gathering virtually with Mike Nicholson around student self-directed learning. Mike put a lot of time into preparing this, organizing this. And we did have, I know we had at least one parent from Mount Scottney. It was a pretty large group and I couldn't see everybody, but I know Misty Booton did show up, and she was in my group because we broke into small groups. And the conversation was robust, and I think folks really learned a lot from the other schools around the country that are doing this kind of work or thinking about doing this kind of work. And one of the things that Mike would like to do next year, and he no longer works for Battelle, he is doing some private kinds of consultation. What he'd like to do is keep that parent group alive and well next year. So maybe they meet 2 or 3 times over the course of the year. So we'll keep those parents on our mailing list. And there were a couple of parents from Heartland, a couple of parents from Wethersfield as well. So there was good representation from our SU. The middle level work continues. We now have a timeline which has to be vetted one more time, I think, before we go completely public with it. We have a meeting toward the end of May. And I also think the interim superintendent is going to want to weigh in on this. I know it's on our agenda for later on tonight, but that's kind of where the task force is at this point. The calendar is final for next year. I can put it in the chat. I think I can find it and put it in the chat, but if not, I think it's already gone out. The only thing that needed to be done was to insert those 4 early noon release days that the Supervisory Union Board approved at their last meeting. I know principals are working now on the daily schedules. That's not easy, especially since we're trying to provide planning time, during the school day, common planning time, collaborative time for all teachers, and in particular our middle school teachers. So the day will be extended again next year by 10 to 15 minutes, which will bring us back pretty much to where we were pre-COVID. So principals will get those schedules out. They will have to match up because we have itinerant teachers that go back and forth between schools. We have special educators that do, and plus we have a unified contract that requires teachers to work the same number of hours, and support staff also have to be under the same union agreement. So stay tuned, and those schedules, I know they're working hard on those right now. We're going to be barbecued out because on June 2nd, and I want to thank some of the folks who are here tonight who have been a part of this community forum planning. It's been a good group. I think we've got it. I think we've got it down now. It will be June 2nd. It'll start at 5:30. It's SU-wide, the forum, and if you remember, our community asked for more dialogue between the boards and between the communities and the parents in particular. So those invites are going out probably in the next few days, and 5:30 to 6:45 essentially will be the forum piece in the auditorium. And then from 5:45 to 6:30, nice little barbecue, weather permitting. We're going to do it rain or shine, but hopefully we can be outside. And who knows, maybe Kate will share her cornhole games with us that night as well. But it should be a good night
Jen and I are the reigning cornhole champs. I just want to point that out. So if anybody wants to challenge, we will accept it.
All right, so bring those cornhole games with you for that night. Should be a good night, kind of a good way to, to end our year. Still awaiting a decision on an interim. I know that the SU board is interviewing candidates for interim superintendent as we speak, and we should have a decision reasonably soon and have enough time to do that transitional work. And last but not least, the last day of school is a noon dismissal on June 17th. And also there will be an SU-wide 7th and 8th grade dance at the Windsor Rec Center that evening. And I know there's a group of parents planning that. And I think we got out a tentative notice in my last email blast, but you'll be hearing more about this from the individual schools. But a great way for our 7th and 8th graders to get together. Of course, if we do middle school next year, by the end of the year, maybe our 6th grade will be ready to join in. But this year, it's only 7th and 8th grade, and it should be an exciting time. And last but not least, the task force, the equity task force, or anti-racism task force, will be meeting soon to prioritize our action steps. And Mary Gannon's work looks to be promising at the SU level. It begins tomorrow night at 5:30. It's virtual only, and it's an opportunity for Mary to share with the board some of her thoughts. And so we do not have an in-person option for that tomorrow night. And it is basically, I mean, certainly the public is welcome to attend, but it is basically for board education, board development. And we're still talking about whether or not we're going to continue with Lavelle Brown's work next year. I'm going to leave that up to the interim superintendent. I think we had some good work done with Lavelle, and I know that he and his contacts have been wondering if we're going to continue to be part of that cohort next year. So that's it for me. And I will stop presenting and answer any questions you might have.
Rebecca?
David, I just wanted to be clear. So with next year's schedule, we're going back to pre-COVID arrangement, which means that there will not be that time at the end of the day for teachers to gather and work on different things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Rebecca. There will still be some of that time because, you either schedule that collaborative time in the middle of the day or at the end of the day. And so we've decided within the framework of a 7.5-hour workday that there'll still be, upwards to 45 minutes for teachers to work in collaborative groups, to work on teams, to do that kind of collective work aside from those noon release days. But yeah, there'll be some of that, not quite as much as we had this year, but there'll still be some of that time.
I just wonder also, because I thought that was really the intent of those efforts were to sort of give the board an idea of how teachers and staff were working with the different initiatives that are presently in place, and we really haven't heard back anything about that in some time. And I would still be very interested in getting feedback and finding out how that time, how the staff found that time in terms of helping them during this time. So do you know what I'm saying? I just think that I'd like to hear back on what is going on and how that's working for teachers.
Yeah, no, I certainly understand that. One of the things that happened, Rebecca, remember when we designed that schedule and we set that 45 minutes to an hour at the end of the day, and we had all those professional learning communities that were going to meet regularly. what happened is we had a tough fall and a tough winter with COVID. So what happened was anxieties began to build and teachers were exhausted. And so we used some of that time. We used some of that time to give some relief and release to our teachers to just kind of gear up for the next day. That's just to be completely transparent. So those, 10 or 12 personal learning committees that we had set up did not meet regularly every month, but there were some things that went on, our Lighthouse Initiative, some of our trauma-informed work went on, and I'm sure we could report out on some of that, but I'll tell you the truth, what was going to be a recovery year this year did not turn out to be a recovery year. It turned out to be another year by which we're going to have to recover next year, which is why we didn't want to lose that time at the end of the day. But that's the truth, Rebecca. It was not as robust as we had hoped.
And that's fine. I think that I wasn't looking necessarily for that. I really wanted, it was also an opportunity for teachers to have some input in talking about. So I hear what you're saying, but I just think that it would probably be a good idea to find out from the teachers on what that was like for them. And I think being transparent is important. I value that. So no, I appreciate that very much. But I was hoping that we can hear back from the teachers. And I know in the past there were surveys done which would allow them to speak, for their voices to be heard. And I just thought that was important.
That's good. Yeah, and some of the feedback we did get, Rebecca, and it's going to lead some of the work for next year. The teachers were certainly they were feeling stressed this year, so we gave them some release and some relief. But also one of the things they said is that sometimes the one-size-fit-all professional development work, that if somebody is highly skilled and trauma informed, why should they have to spend 2 or 3 weeks in a PLC around trauma informed? As a matter of fact, they might want to teach that work. So one of the things, and this is something we could present, one of the things that Angie and Brittany have been working hard on is next year to have a much more elaborate self-directed. We always talk about students being self-directed in their professional development, so self-determined. So there's going to be a lot more of that next year with teachers having some voice and choice in what they do. But I think it would be nice for, if not at this board level, at the SU board level, to give you some insight into what happened this year and what's happening next year.
We are. That's on the agenda for the end of May.
Good.
Good idea.
I see Amy's hand. Do you see Amy's hand, Elizabeth?
Sorry, I've just been shouting. Amy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I thought that might be what you were saying. David, will there be the Friday early release that we've had the last few years, at least pre-COVID?
Yeah, and that's what I meant, Amy, that we have the, are you talking about next year or the last day of school?
Next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah, and I don't know whether you were at the meeting or not, but what the supervisory union board with administrative recommendation went from 1 a month of those release days, because those release days are a little tough on parents. They went down to 1 per quarter. So there are still those noon release days on Fridays, and that's another time for staff to collaborate and get together and to work on these initiatives. So there will be some of that next year.
Okay, so pre-COVID, the Mount Escutney School District was every Friday. So
yeah, that's exactly right. So, and that's like pre-COVID. You're right, Amy, and that will not happen next year. And part of that is because, now our school day, remember, that's a recent negotiated item. Our school day is now unified across the district. So if in fact we would have every Friday as an early release day, every professional staff member would have to have that. And And I'm not saying that's why we didn't do it, but that was when each district could sort of make their own schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for David? Thank you, David. We now move on to our discussion section, and at the top of the list is, bumped up to the top of the list is the conflict of interest. So I will now, Bill, I will now call on Bill to ask his question, and then I will step back and let Amy run the meeting.
I don't really want to ask a question. I'm wondering if the owl can be muted in between discussions, because something is really interfering with our audio. I just don't know.
Yeah, and it is that
going on, and I'm just doing this, and it's picking that up. It's moving it.
No, I think it's the owl. I think Bill's right. I think we need. Now, I don't know what happens if we mute the owl, other than we can't hear people in the room, unless you turn on your volumes. But Larry, what would you suggest? Can we mute that owl for some of this?
Well, since there's only a couple people, I could leave. I could have the owl. Is everybody experiencing what Bill's experiencing? Because that would be good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of white noise coming from the owl.
All right, so let me.
I bet it's the air handler.
Well, let me.
Yeah, it sounds like an air filtration system or something. It sounds like a fan.
It might be the air conditioner in that room.
Is that better now?
That's better.
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Is the air conditioner on in that room, Larry?
The air handler's on.
The air handling. I bet that's exactly that. I bet that's a big part of it. But I think if you keep your volumes where you are, the owl's muted now. I think we should be okay.
The owl's not muted.
Oh, the owl's not muted? Maybe that's why we're still getting some white noise.
I can mute it if I can. Let me try to turn off the air handler. I'll be right back.
Okay, and I can mute it temporarily, but that means we won't be able to listen to Angie,
Or
and we won't unless Amy turns her volume on. Then we could do it.
No, David. You would just unmute Amy. Just unmute the owl.
I'm going to mute the owl right now. I can't unmute it, but I can mute it.
All right, let me try to turn off the air handler.
Yeah, you can see the difference, right? That's a big difference. Can everybody hear the difference there, right? Quiet. Yeah, that's much better. The problem is Angie and Amy will have to turn their volume on and the other one turn it off as you want to speak. So I think, Elizabeth, you were going to turn it over to Amy. Go ahead.
Well, I think we should wait until Amy gets, until everybody in that room gets sorted, right?
That doesn't work because the owl's volume. I see what I see. Yep, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, we'll just have to deal with the noise from the owl. That's
Yeah,
fine.
maybe that's it. So Angie, you want to go turn the volume back on for the owl?
David, I think you muted it.
I did. I can't unmute it. She has to unmute it.
Okay.
I can only mute. I can't unmute.
Yeah, we all have our limitations, David. It's fine.
I know.
How's that? How's that? The handler is off.
That's much better.
It is.
Yeah, it's way better. Thanks.
That was some annoying noise.
It was.
I feel so much better. Yay.
Now we know what it was.
Okay, are we ready?
I think so.
And everyone can hear me? We will start the hearing for conflict of interest. And Larry, it's all good. They can, that was the noise.
Who turned it off?
You did?
Not yet.
It magically went off.
It died.
Oh, it's 7 o'clock. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Oh, yay. Life is good.
So we'll keep that in for the next more meeting in 2:10. I'll make sure we turn off the air handler before we get on.
Thanks,
Okay.
Larry.
Or if everybody's here, it would be useless, right? So.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So, conflict of interest. We have a policy that was approved July 1st, 2019. And the definition of a conflict of interest is a situation when a board member's and its administrative designees' private interests as distinguished from the board members and its administrative designees' interest as a member of the public would benefit or be harmed by his or her actions as a member of the board. So in other words, the question is Elizabeth's work as a state representative, is it benefiting her private interests? And Daniel Wirtz, if you are here, if you wanted to reiterate your charge on this.
Sure, I can do that. I'll probably keep my camera off just so I can keep my papers in front of me if nobody cares. Anywho, I ain't that great to look at anyway. So
I prefer to keep your camera on, please.
I will try. Just because I'll have one thing in one hand and one thing in the other. I might bounce around a little bit, but I will try to do that. So I'm gonna, if I have the floor for a bit, I'll kind of paraphrase through the letter I submitted, and then I'll add a few other notes and details towards the end. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. So I believe the conflict of interest here arises between Elizabeth standing as a Vermont House of Representatives member representing Windsor County, while simultaneously being on the school boards here. It's a conflict of legislative and administrative balance of powers, overlap of jurisdictions, and legislative and then administrative power differentials. Besides also, I believe, being a violation of Vermont law on school board member conduct, notwithstanding what the definition of the conflict of interest is in this policy. So some kind of clear examples of this that I think make it, at least to me, as potentially a reasonable person, obvious, are just some of the bills that she's signed on as sponsor to through her, rightful proper duty as a state legislator, member of the state legislature. But some of those that are most notable, I think, are House Bill 163, which is an act relating to enhancing equitable learning and workplace environments in public schools. The conflicts of interest there is that that's a bill which would require supervisory union actions to be taken, as well as curriculum level actions to be taken. House Bill 537 from earlier this year was an act related to a statewide mask mandate. I'll detail that a little bit more after I go through a couple other bills. There is House Bill 584, an act relating to the creation of an anti-racist education certification. That has financial implications as well as school policy implications, and comments have been noted in prior meeting minutes about the supervisory union perhaps setting aside budget for such things that may come from this legislation. And Elizabeth's kind of dual roles is the only reason she's able to make some statements greater than a school board member in and of themselves would otherwise be able to speak to. And then another one is House Bill 641, an act relating to public schools or public post-secondary schools mascots, nicknames, logos, letterhead, and team names. I'm not saying anything about what I feel about any of these bills, but in this one, for example, that's the state legislator taking power that would otherwise reside within school boards, power differential issues. There are some others I note in the letter. I'll leave them aside for now. I'm sure you all have copies. So per Vermont law that I cite in the letter, school board members, quote, shall establish policies and procedures designed to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest, close quote. It is my assertion that this is not possible for anybody to do simultaneously as being a state representative and a school board member. Some prior meetings where this came up, I think more obviously, per the conflict of interest policy, quote, when a board member and its administrative designees become aware that he or she are in a position that creates a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest, I emphasize that or intentionally there. Back to the quote, as defined in state law or this policy, he or she will declare the nature and extent of the conflict or appearance of conflict for inclusion in the board minutes and will abstain from voting or participating in the discussion of the issue giving rise to the conflict, close quote. That's certainly not been done in general, and a really notable example of that is a December 14th Manascutney School District meeting, December 14th of 2021. In the minutes, there's a note that Elizabeth Burrows, this is a quote from the minutes, Elizabeth Burrows stated that she felt it would be wise to set aside additional funds for extra training for high school level restorative justice or other anti-racism measures, whether a formal plan for training is in place or not. That goes back to the House bill I mentioned, where there's some financial implications when it comes down to the school board level. And then less than a month later, there's the House Bill 584, an act relating to the creation of an anti-racist education certification. That would have direct implications for the very funding that was asked for at the time and would also require the school board to take actions and policy. So again, just an example of legislative action that has direct implications on the school board level. And the conflict in having a voting and discussing role in both. Let me continue. One other example I wanted to highlight is back to the masking bill I mentioned. There was lots of school board level discussion about school board level policies for the schools about masking. And these discussions were happening while Burrows, in her legislative role, was actively sponsoring legislation that would have created a statewide mask mandate superseding the powers of the school board. I don't see how anybody could possibly reasonably look at that and not think that there's at the very least the appearance of a conflict of interest, besides there being an actual conflict of interest. And a school board member is supposed to be an unbiased, neutral voice on any of these topics for the schools. I just don't see how that's possible while you're actively signing on to legislation that would override the authority of your role on the school board. Mostly this is the implementation, section 5 in the conflict of interest policy where there's particular violation. And it is my personal judgment based on the scope and duration and ability for the public to reasonably kind of look at this, that there's no remediation other than resignation from either the school board or the House of Representatives, one way or another, because I just don't think both can be done without there being a constant potential conflict of interest going on. So there's a little bit more that closes my letter. I'll share just a few more notes that are outside of that letter. There's a current event of note that came out of the Vermont legislature, maybe ironically enough, maybe not, that Vermont just passed Senate Bill 171, which is a code of ethics for elected officials. And sorry, an act relating to adoption of a state code of ethics is the formal name of it. And there may also be a violation of that in play. It would depend on your interpretation, but something I pulled out of it, this is a quote from the signed bill from the governor. In the public servant's official capacity, this being Elizabeth as a public servant, as a member of the state legislature. In the public servant's official capacity, the public servant shall avoid any conflicts of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest. The appearance of a conflict shall be determined by the perspective of a reasonable individual with knowledge of the relevant facts. Close quote. It also specifies that, one more quote, when confronted with a conflict of interest, a public servant shall recuse themselves from the matter and not take further action. Close quote. One other point from a different state to share, and then I'll finish up and get out of the way. There are other states that have more explicit laws about this, and I saw one that was pretty darn clear out of Texas. Again, this is Vermont, so that doesn't apply, but let me throw in there what another state legislator writes on this issue. So this is a quote that I pulled that with a reference I can share after the fact. The Texas Municipal League, a guidance document on Texas dual office holding and incompatibility laws made easy. A section called Conflicting Loyalties Incompatibility. And the question they address there is, if a person holds two positions or offices with the school board and a role in the state legislature, both being defined as positions or offices, what circumstances could cause a conflicting loyalties problem? The answer given in that guidance document, I'm going to read a bit of a block of text here. Conflicting loyalties prevent a person from simultaneously holding two public offices when the interest of the two public entities may conflict and when voting on behalf of one public entity would possibly compromise the interests of the other public entity. In other words, the official would have to choose between the conflicting interests of the two entities and thus would have conflicting loyalties. For example, a person may not serve on the city council at the same time that he or she serves as a school board trustee because both the city council and the school board may be adopting policies on some of the same issues. Break out for a second, perhaps a mask mandate. Back into the block of text there. If the city council exercises its authority over school district property within the city, the council member must be free to vote on what is in the best interest of the city, which may not coincide with the best interest of the school district. Break out, perhaps you replace city with state. Back in. Accordingly, the courts in the office of the Attorney General have generally ruled that a person may not hold two public offices where the inherent policy objectives between the two offices are likely to conflict in certain areas. The incompatibility doctrine, quote, protects the integrity of government institutions by promoting impartial service by public officials, close quote. I will close this and turn it back over to the board for good here. In a moment, I would like to put out there, and this doesn't need an inherent answer, but I did want to get this into the meeting recording. And note in the prior meeting where the vote was held on whether or not to hold this informal hearing, that there was one no vote, as Bill Yates owned up to earlier, not even thinking that there might be the appearance of a conflict of interest. And he even said earlier in this meeting, kind of shockingly to me anyway, that he was proud of that. I'd love to hear further elaboration how you can justify that no vote. And finally, for the other board members who voted yes, I of course think that was the proper thing to do, to have a serious hearing here, but it was a very caged yes, and the comments made were essentially that the reason for the yes votes was to just generally take a look at how conflicts of interest are handled, and maybe we'll look at the policy. No, the primary purpose here is a serious hearing of what I'm presenting forward, where you are to make a vote based on the merits of it. So I just ask that this not be, let's just go through the policy. This is, I think, something serious to look at. I have nothing personally against anybody on this board or any boards. I commend everybody who works in public service in all sorts of formats. I make no positions on any of the bills or anything like that that I put in here. I have no personal animus or dislike or anything like that against Elizabeth or anybody else on this board. I put all this forward because I think there is a fundamental conflict of interest. And if the Mount Escutney School Board wants to keep the trust of the public from the outside looking in, this kind of thing seems to me pretty obvious to not have in plain sight. So thanks very much for hearing me out on that. I will mute myself, turn the camera off, and I think that's probably all you have to hear from me for this meeting on the issue. Thanks again.
Thank you. Elizabeth, before you start, I would like to make a clarification in Vermont law. As far as there is a chart of incompatible offices, and in Vermont, a school director can also be a select person. And in that chart of incompatible offices, there is no mention of state representative or state senator. That has not been part of the incompatible offices in the state of Vermont. So, Elizabeth, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Amy. I did not prepare anything particular to say, except that there are 12 other school board members who are legislators. And on the Education Committee of the House of Representatives, there are 3 members who are also school board members. Sorry, there are 12, not legislators, there are 12 representatives in the Vermont House of Representatives who are school board members. I didn't ask at the Senate, but I don't even serve on the Education Committee. I actually serve on the Healthcare Committee. And I certainly did look into whether it would be a conflict of interest before I wasted my time running for the House of Representatives. We have a citizen legislature. We do not have a professional legislature. We have a citizen legislature in which every citizen wears more than one hat. A lot of legislators serve in select boards and on other boards because we are people who are community minded, and we sometimes volunteer on or run for school boards and become passionate about what we do and decide that we would like to take our act to we would like to gain the ability to make bigger changes. As far as my own personal gain, there is one bill that I put forward that I could be seen to have had a personal interest in, and that was the accessible bill, or the accessible trails bill that I put forth during my first week of office, which would have allowed me to get around on trails around our state more easily. The bill was never taken up, but I would definitely have benefited personally from it, not financially or any other way, but I would have been able to use trails. As far as any of these, the bills that Daniel has brought up, there's not a single one where I would have personally gained. The mascot bill, I did indeed speak out as a school board member on last week when I voted in favor of it. But these are normal things that legislators do. If I were a teacher, or there is a member of the House Education Committee who is not only a teacher but also a school board member, and she's a member of the House Committee on Education, and she serves in all three capacities every single day. Let's see. She did recuse herself from the pensions vote, but she votes on everything else and presents bills every day that pertain to education. That is what representation is. When I come to an SU board meeting, I do not hold all of the votes. I am one person with one vote. When I lead our Mount Escutney School District meetings, I am not commanding you to vote in any way. I simply lead the meetings. I put on the agenda what anybody asks me to put on the agenda. I simply call on people when they have a question. I don't have more power than anybody else. At the House of Representatives, I have one vote. I may put forth the bill, but I also put forth a bill that had to do with the state EQS system because Bill Yates asked me to. That's what representation is. When somebody asks you to serve their interests, that's why I was elected to represent not the county of Windsor County, but Windsor, West Windsor, and Heartland. I take what people ask me to. I take up to the State House, and I have bills drafted. As far as the anti-racism education certification process, I was asked to help with that bill because it was requested by a group of students from around the state who had been very excited about Act 1 coming into the educational quality standards from Act 1 being completed, and they wanted to put forth something that would support that. And one of their advisors invited me to help them see how exciting it is to have a bill drafted in their honor. Setting aside the budget, the money in the budget, I think everybody on this board knows that it had nothing to do with any legislation. We simply wanted to, it wasn't at the SU level, it was at our district level. We talked about setting aside money so that if we wanted to, if the supervisory union moved forward with some of the initiatives implementing our anti-racism policy, we would have money ready to go if we decided to take up some of those initiatives on a district level. That was what we talked about. We did not do it, I don't believe, but that was one of the options for what to do with the budget surplus. Let's see. As far as the code of ethics for state legislators, as a matter of fact, I went to talk to the ethics panel, the House ethics panel, and talked with the chair of the House ethics panel, who said I was putting myself at a great deal of risk by addressing the board today. But I feel after talking over with a variety of people that I trust our community, and the chair of the ethics panel said that we wouldn't have a legislature, we wouldn't have half of the school board members or select board members that we have if they couldn't serve dual roles on both local and legislative capacities, because we don't have that many people who are willing to put this type of time and effort into supporting our communities. We get paid $7,000. We net $7,000 a year. So most people either are retired or hold full-time jobs. It's not a power grab. It is. I wanted to be a part of the legislature so that I could help pass laws that would benefit students all over the state, as well as everybody else in the state. But one of the original impetuses was stemming from my role as a school board member, and then that is not because I had a personal gain that I wanted to ultimately fulfill. So that's it. I don't really have anything else. 12, it's not a thing. It's a regular everyday occurrence for school board members to serve in the House of Representatives, and it's a regular everyday thing for representatives to serve on local boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I will now ask David to put, I will take a motion to go into executive session so the board can deliberate.
So moved.
Second.
Was that you, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to, hold on. I will do a roll call of votes, starting with Bill.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And Rebecca.
Aye.
It is the majority. We will go into executive session. And David, if you could put us into a breakout room. And when we finish deliberating, we will come out of the breakout room. We have now joined back to our public session, and I will take a roll call vote. Let me, hold on. And the question is there a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in Elizabeth Burrows serving on the Mount Escutney School District Board, as well as a representative in the state legislature?
So moved.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thank you, Bill. And is there a second?
Second.
That was a tie between Nancy and Davis. So an I vote means yes, you feel that there is a conflict of interest. Nay is you do not feel there is a conflict of interest. And this will be roll call, beginning with Bill.
Nay.
Davis,
Nay.
Nancy,
Nay.
Rebecca,
Nay.
and I, Amy, also vote nay. It is unanimous of the board members that there is not a conflict of interest nor an appearance of a conflict of interest with Elizabeth Burrows serving on the Mount Escutney School District Board as well as being a state representative. So thank you, everyone, for taking that time and for the discussion. And we will now go on to with the agenda.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking that time to work it out. Next on the agenda is the middle school model.
Right, as I said during my report, the task force that has been meeting has one more meeting the end of May. You don't have that date right in front of me, but essentially it'll be to look at the tasks at hand for next year. We broke it into chunks. What will happen year one? What will happen year two? What will happen year three? And because this is going to be a slow rollout. And one of the things I think that's pertinent to this board, the Mount Escutney board, is that first year, most of what will happen in grade 6 in terms of curriculum and instruction, it'll be primarily contained as grade 6. There's not going to be a lot of mixing up or intergroup work with 6, 7, and 8 in year 1. And one of the things we say in the first action step, if this holds up, is that year 1 would be a time, and I know we've talked about this a lot, for the new interim, this board, to have those kinds of community engagements in West Windsor to decide over time what would the implications be for either leaving grade 6 where they are or moving grade 6 over to Mount Escutney. But as we've said, that's going to take some community dialogue. And we set up that whole year, or you've got a whole year basically to do that work, because even though there'll be some times when there'll be assemblies and maybe field trips and maybe field days, but on those occasions, we can provide transportation and get the Albert Bridge kids over to Windsor or vice versa. The real issue will be if we start to do any, integrated work, multi-age work, those kinds of pieces. And I think that's when we want to get out ahead of this in terms of what the West Windsor community thinks about grade 6 in that town. So that's kind of where we are right now. And we can probably share that timeline in much more detailed form after we have that meeting in May. But I'm prepared to ask any questions. I know that all the administrators on this call have been, part of that task force. But I'll answer any questions anybody has about where we are.
Rebecca, I see your hand.
David, I've heard a little bit about the middle school model, and I understand that there has been a task force working on this for some time. So I would imagine that there's probably notes and documentation about, what's been discussed and when. And so I'm wondering if it's just to maybe bring some of us up to date, because if some of that information could be made available to the board, just to kind of get some sort of understanding of what the process was.
So do you want to know the process, or do you want to know some of the outcomes. I'm a little bit, I mean, I did share those common themes with you last time, and I shared those at the SU level. And those are the pieces around, you know, everything from, you know, common planning time, more integration of the arts, more collaborative planning time. You know, so we talked about that. And again, that's why we had to get some things in year one, some things in year two, some things in year three. And I'm just hesitant to share that plan until next month, just because the team hasn't had the final opportunity to vet that timeline yet. And I also want to make sure that the interim superintendent has a chance to weigh in. But I could certainly share that common themes document again if you want that, or I could share out with all boards, because remember, this is SU-wide, with all boards as soon as we have that meeting. I think it's either next week. I think it's next week, or if not, it's certainly the week after. But there's nothing that's going to impact the way we are currently structured right now, the way we're rolling this out.
So you're saying that next year we would not really see any sort of changes with grades being combined or moved in any direction, other than bringing in the interim and sort of developing that middle school model more.
Right, exactly. And we did that intentionally because we wanted to, and it seemed like this was the way the Mount Scottney board wanted to do it as well. And they hold the largest number of middle school kids, you know, if we define it according to the age group that group wants to define it, you hold the largest number of those kids. So we intentionally waited a year before we did any, you know, serious mixing of kids. What will happen is, and I think this is important to note, is that we've had some 5-6 teams that have been operating in all of our buildings, and those 5-6 teams, as collaborators and staff members, they have to, you know, they're going to have to separate, because there will be things like common lunches, common recess, you know, assemblies, advisories, but they won't be mixed advisories. But they'll be straight grade 6, straight grade 7, and straight grade 8, and that'll be the case at Heartland. That'll be the case at Wethersfield. So we are intentionally going slow. It's sort of like go slow to go fast, and I think that's kind of where we are next year.
Thank you.
Bill, I see your hand.
Oh, thank you. I want to piggyback on what Rebecca said, more with what I'd be interested in is definitely after the next meeting I'm not particularly interested in seeing notes. I'd like to see an actual the actual written proposal, especially before it goes public, and all the different steps. So that's what I'd be interested in seeing after they've had their last meeting and are able to create a finished product.
I'd like to see that too, Bill. David, do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think we can do that. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much mapped out now. And I think we just need to make sure we've got, you know, the right things in year 1, the right things in year 2, and the right things in year 3. And then we can certainly share that with the board. We might even be ready. We might even be ready by the SU meeting at the end of this month. But I've got to go back in and look and see when that task force meets again. I'm looking right now. It looks like it's on the 26th. So that'll be after the SU meeting. So I think in June, we'll be prepared to give you an outline of the plan.
Okay, thank you.
But I think for the importance of tonight's meeting, I just think it's important to note that there won't be any significant mixing of age groups. You know, that was going to be the impact that was going to affect Mount Scottney, because we've got sixth grade. Unlike the other districts, we have sixth grade in 2 different buildings. So that gives us some time to work on that piece next year.
The next thing on our agenda is the Interdistrict Choice. Jennifer Aldrich, are you able to speak to that?
I can certainly speak to it. So we shared with you last time, and I'm happy to try and share it again, just an overview of what other districts have done, other supervisory unions have done, that we thought as a smaller team seemed to fit well with what we thought would work well. And from there, Nancy's done a great job of kind of supporting some additional work in terms of doing just kind of a frequently answered questions, as well as just kind of a cover letter for what the schools are. So here's the intra-district school choice policy. One of the things we're still trying to figure out is some things to do with transportation. We've got this issue not just about school choice, but some other things within our supervisory union. So transportation is still one of those kind of big questions that we don't have all the answers for, because currently we do have the capacity to get kids from West Windsor over to Windsor. And getting them from Windsor to West Windsor is not something that is currently happening. And so one of the questions is, can we make that happen? We're looking at next year trying to get, oh my gosh, I'm itchy everywhere. Trying to get 2 separate buses, which I think could address the issue of getting kids from Windsor to West Windsor, as well as what we've already got of West Windsor to Windsor. We also are looking at the possibility of getting a school van, and that could also assist if we needed to. So that way, one of our concerns as a committee was we didn't want to make it so it was about parent capacity in terms of transportation or finances. So we wanted to make sure it was equitable. So we still got to figure out the transportation, what that looks like. We don't have that answer yet, but we do have that in the works of what that could look like. So this is the draft that we shared last time with everybody. And we're looking at hopefully doing this starting pretty soon, because we've got kindergarten screening coming up May 12th and 13th between our district. And it would be great to be able to share that out. One of our goals is to create and here's the cover letter that Nancy has worked on, create sort of a pamphlet that has not only words but images about the 2 different schools and what they have to offer. I scheduled it twice on my calendar, and both times got knocked off because of subbing issues. But I have it scheduled again for Wednesday, so hopefully I will get a pamphlet out and ready to go that has some of the awesomeness of both of our schools and some of the similarities. And then Nancy also worked on our frequently asked questions that we certainly can share out too. And I've shared it with all the school board members at the beginning of this meeting, so you guys can look at it on your own. And if you need to give feedback or ask questions, we can certainly address those as is appropriate. So that's where we are.
Thank you. I have a question not for you, but for Larry. Is Larry still here?
Yeah.
Hi, Larry. How are we doing on the vans? Or the
Yeah,
van?
so Jim's looking at getting a quote. We expect to have it for next year. Obviously, anybody's been following the national thing about new vehicles, you know, but we're pretty confident we can get a van. So.
Okay, so I mean, I guess that the reason that I asked you as part of this discussion is, can that be a legitimate part of the discussion, but having the van as an option part of the transportation discussion?
So what she's talking about is a separate bus, I would prefer using a van for that. I just don't know if we could do that, because if it's 30 kids, the van won't do 30 kids. So if it's about Albert Bridge and Windsor having the same stop time, we would have to get another bus from our vendor. I reached out to them 2 weeks ago from David, and as we expected, it was not we were already under contract. So if we have to go outside with the superintendent's charge, I'll go find another bus company for this one bus run for 30 students, if that's what the superintendent wants. It would have to be a different bus company. Also, know that there are bus driver shortages too. So whether or not I could even find somebody, but that seems to be what the administrators want, and that's what I'm gonna try to fulfill. That's what I'm working on it.
Thank you, Larry. David, I see your hand.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of a difficult time with student transportation of Vermont. I mean, they do a great job, and Mike Gaudette, who manages our district, works really hard to accommodate us. But one of the things, remember, we had a 5-year contract with them. And one of the things that I've been trying to explain to Mike and his supervisor, Brian, is that in the middle of that contract, things changed. We don't just have school choice now for the West Windsor kids. We now have a brand new school district. And quite frankly, in the next 2 years, every single high school kid who comes, or junior, middle school and high school kid who comes out of Albert Bridge will need to be transported. And that used to be 10, 12, 15 kids. Now it's pushing 30. By the end, in 2 more years, it could be 40, 50 kids, right? Essentially the entire school. And I've been trying, and Larry's been working, I've been working with Mike, that you either have to accommodate that, Mike, with a run, so that you now have that West Windsor run, so that West Windsor bus leaves Windsor, goes out to West Windsor, and does door-to-door drops, just like they do for the Windsor kids. It's called equity. It's called a single district. It's called the way it works. And it's hard for Mike to get his head around that. So what I told Larry is, look, we'll give him, you know, a little bit longer to think about this and ruminate about this. But if not, then we may have to go out and subcontract with another bus company. And I've done this before with a tech run that had to go from Hartford Tech Center to Windsor, and we had to go to Bruce Transportation. I think that's where we went, and just hire a bus. A bus is about somewhere between $20,000 to $27,000, and I know that'll be an expense but I think it's time we bite that off now and make that happen. And it's going to impact, I think, a lot of kids in West Windsor, because right now we're doing the same thing we did before we were a single district. We're trying to get everybody to Albert Bridge. That means some of the kids at Windsor have to leave Windsor early in order to get to West Windsor on time. Then they board that bus just like they used to do when we weren't a single district. And then they're distributed throughout the West Windsor area, more or less. And I just don't think that's acceptable anymore. And I'm trying to make that clear to Michael. And I think the board has to understand it's a little bit of an issue. And Larry is on top of it. He understands it. And we're just going to give Mike a little time to get back to us.
Thank you, David, for expounding on that. And I hope we get an answer to that sooner rather than later, because it really it's a crucial piece of all of this. So. Does anybody have any questions for Jennifer about intra-district choice? Rebecca?
Hi, Jennifer. It sounds like this is going to happen, as you just mentioned. I mean, that it's in the process of happening. You are looking at kindergarten students already, and is the community going to get some sort of also a plan that this is happening, that this will be effective, so that they at least know that, and some won't, but at least there's documentation that when this went into effect, They were informed that there was sufficient information available for everyone to see and know, and just trying to be as transparent as possible for folks.
So, Jennifer, can I talk on that real quick?
Yep.
I think it's important to point out that what's happening now is we're creating a possible exchange, and that's what's happening. We are in the middle of, and Jennifer and Nancy have done a great job putting in a lot of extra work on this, but this board would have to vote on it before it moves forward. So this isn't something that's just going to happen. We have to vote on the policy, and in our committee meetings, we've discussed the real importance of getting this information out and getting it out clearly, why we're doing it, how it's going to work beforehand. Jennifer, if you're welcome to add, of course.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was just gonna say we need the board's thumbs up to move forward. And then one of our goals would be to, a part of this brochure is to be very clear about the purposes of it and to make sure that we have an action plan for how we get it out, not only to our new students, but to the students who are already there. And one of the other goals I think we'd want to do is get some kind of data about how the families who participate in these things are impacted by it. So that way we could tell whether or not we have an equitable approach and whether or not what we're doing is actually worth the investment that we're putting into it.
The other really great thing is that we're not reinventing the wheel. A lot of policies out there that have already been created and have been implemented had just a wealth of information that when we read through, it's like, this makes complete sense. This is exactly what we want to do. And Nancy globbed on very quickly about the one of them, actually two of them had the fact sheet on how it works. Not that we copied the fact sheet, but just that format is really informative. So you've got, it lists out questions that people have, and then it gets to the answers.
Well, okay, here's a question. Just working backwards. Is there any chance that we can get this done before the end of the school year?
I think the best possibility would be if the board says we like the basic proposal, then I think we can take pretty quick action on the details of it.
Okay. Then I'm gonna put it on our action, our items for action. But in advance of acting on it for our items for action, Amy, what do you think about all this?
So what do I think? I think it's exciting. I think it's wonderful. My question, because I had my hand raised.
Oh, you did? I didn't see your hand raised.
I did. I took it down because David answered my question. I wondered how kids from West Windsor were getting to Windsor, how that was happening now and how many. And thank you, David, you answered without me having to ask. But I went to maybe the first meeting and then my work schedule got crazy. And I think it's really exciting that there's a possibility of kids and families having a voice on where, kind of a decision of where they want their younger kids to be. And I think the proposal, as it was written, spelling out the positive aspects of Albert Bridge and the positive aspects of Windsor, what environment would best serve your child. I think that's really exciting.
So let me get this straight then. just so that I understand it, I'm not looking at your letter or any of the FAQs or anything like that right now, but are you presenting this to kindergarten parents or prospective kindergarten parents as here are your two options for kindergarten? Or are you presenting it as you live in Windsor, but if you want to, you could go to, why not do the here are your two options for kindergarten?
We could once we get there, when kids start registering in kindergarten, but right now we've got lots of openings. At some point it will become primarily about being in kindergarten, but right now we have 7 grades that could possibly
Yeah. I know, but I guess what I'm saying is, rather than looking at it as an alternative, why not embrace it as, here are the choices, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And as we move forward, I would love to have some version of a shared presentation on our district as a whole and what our options are. And I think that starts with kind of this idea of let's create a brochure. But I think moving forward, what we'd love to have is to say, come to our Windsor West Windsor community. Here's what we have for opportunities, right? And that becomes what
that
attracts.
That movie that Larry made, the movie about why I picked why Windsor. Is that what it was called? About Windsor High School?
I chose Windsor about Windsor
sorry?
High School. It was called I Chose Windsor by.
I Chose Windsor, that's right. It was really good. It was very well done.
Yeah, it was good. Steve Drew.
Yeah.
We could do something like that and have it.
Yes, and we actually talked about that and going to a some kind of local professional who does this stuff to help us not just our school and the K-6, but then really highlight the middle school, because there are some options for middle school, and then so just do the whole big picture of who Mount Scottney is and have that as a component of it. And so that is a long-term goal that I would love to support and help try to make happen in the very near future.
I think one of the things we have to be careful with is especially in this beginning point is having the kindergarten registration presented as a choice, because it's not really a choice. It's not you can either go here or here. Because there's factors involved, and it's because parents have the ability to apply to their non-town resident school, and then other factors are brought in: staffing, class size, where their siblings already go. All that is laid out there. And I mean, I'd love parents to be able to apply in June sometime, but
well, I just meant by the end of the year, so that we could get word out to parents before the summer takes hold.
Yeah,
I think it would be great if we could get word out to parents before the summer takes hold.
Yeah.
Yes, if you could tell us what you need from us before our June meeting, I'm pretty sure the committee could at least put some pretty serious effort into making sure we have that accomplished.
Okay. Davis, I see your hand, and then Davis, and then David.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add by way of suggestion, but I wanted to kind of echo what Amy had said, and that I think this is all really exciting. I think that we have a lot of great resources within our district, and allowing this degree of choice, and I can appreciate, like Bill said, it's not a pure choice. You sit down and just pick or choose, but having more of a fluid relationship between those those buildings and the resources they have, I think is really, it's a good move. It's a step in the right direction. I'm hoping the logistical issues with the buses are figured out soon, but I have full faith that that will happen. So yeah, I appreciate the work everyone's done on this. It makes me feel really good. Glad to see it.
Thank you, Davis. David?
When people say Davis, I sit up straight because I think people are calling on me. But actually, I wanted to just support what Bill said. I think that, the way this gets presented is really critical. In most districts that have interdistrict choice, and there are other unified districts and other, merged districts and other pre-merged districts that do this. That's why we had all these resources. But essentially, what happens is it is by application. There's a rationale that's stated. It looks like a lot of that work's been done. The problem is the timeline right now, right? I mean, the fact that in most places where I've seen this interdistrict choice, those applications are collected either around March or early April at the latest, because then you can look at your numbers, you can size it all up and move on. But I think that the board during action items can just conceptually give approval, and it sounds like from all the comments, people have that. Then I think we can get down further into the weeds and figure out what it would take to either do a small pilot of this for next year, or we just take that and move into, spring of 23 and get it ready for the year after. But I think a lot's in place to make this happen.
Thank you, David. Let's see. Are there any other questions about interdistrict choice, or comments, or thoughts? Okay. Somebody has a beautiful bird singing outside. Okay, the next item is Windsor Jedi. I'm looking for my book. Rebecca, do you have something that you can tell about the last Windsor Jedi meeting while I look up and see if I have any notes about the last Windsor Jedi meeting?
Sure. First of all, they had a very robust conversation. They are in the midst of developing their what we would call their 2-year strategic plan, and under the Town of Windsor Select Board Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. And they were beginning to discuss different ways that the town can look at in terms of how do they make an environment equitable, and some of the issues that they talked about were postings, for instance. Is that something that the town needs to look at? I guess I really appreciated the piece where there was a comment on construction posting, and normally we see men at work, and so it was those sort of things that we just take for granted, and yet we've seen many women at these construction sites also. So they're beginning to have that conversation, and they're looking at how the town's website maybe could be more accessible to all folks. Another thing they talked about is the Pride Month, which is coming up, which is June, and it just seems like and although they're not facilitating it, but they are part of it, and there's going to be lots of different events in the month of June, lots of educational piece presentations going on, and I think a calendar was expected to come out soon, and on their next meeting, which would be in June, it's their Jedi committee plans on having someone come in and talk about the pronoun issues, to try and educate the community on what that means. Someone raised the issue of I don't know what that means, and I asked my child what I needed to ask my child, and my child knew, but I didn't know it. So they're hoping to take to bring someone in to talk, to educate the community around pronouns. That's a piece that Jedi will be doing on that particular night, on the evening that they have a meeting. I think again, it sounds like it's going to be a full month of celebration, and they really want to impart to the LGBTQ community that a sense of safety in Windsor. So just get ready. I think it sounds like they're doing a wonderful job, and I think that's it. Unless you had something else.
No, I think you did a great job of representing the meeting. Actually, thank you very much for that. Does anybody have any questions or things that they would like to have communicated to the Windsor Jedi Committee? Ways that we can kind of overlap what we can do as a, I think I sense that maybe over the summer we could, without the pressure of some of the school issues needing to be dealt with immediately, maybe over the summer we could figure out some more ways to work collaboratively with them. Davis?
Yeah, and thank you for sharing the updates from what Jedi's been working on. I do know that, again, and Rebecca pointed out, it's not, Jedi isn't the group that is planning the Pride events, but they are very supportive of them, and are part of the scheduled events. I know that there are going to be ways within that, that the school community is welcome to be involved and take part, just to be involved in those efforts. So I think,
I think it would be, I think it would be a good idea for, maybe that's a good point of collaboration, is for us to get information from them that we could pass on to the schools.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen a posting about June. I do know that they're having a flag raising, or they're planning a flag raising on June 1st. But I don't know specific dates for anything else. I just know of events.
Yep. So that I actually got a message from somebody. So the flag raising is happening. The town approved that.
Good.
And the schedule of events is being planned at the moment. I think that the goal was to have it finalized by next week.
Right.
There's a couple moving parts still, because it's a pretty audacious goal, is to have an event every single day in the month of June, to some capacity. So I think once that calendar's out, it might be easier for us to, just take a look at it, see how the school can be involved. I'm hoping that maybe the student groups who have worked on some of this stuff might want to take part as well. I know there's openings for that. I know, and Jedi has really has a central kind of goal to reach out to students and have some youth voice involved as well. So, and I think we'll just see what that calendar is. I've seen it, but I don't want to say too much until the events really get finalized. But as far as, I think there's plans to do some outdoor events, book walks, parade. I don't know if there's the possibility of doing a flag raising on school property or some other sort of display that would be in tandem with that. I know that idea had come up. So those are all things that I think we could talk about. I know we're not meeting again until early June, so it may be tough to get
That's the thing, right? Because I I know that June 1st is the date that sticks in my mind about the flag raising. And besides that, I don't know what time that is. And besides that, I'm worried about the month getting underway before we have our next school board meeting. So I just wanted to make sure that we brought it up, let people know that it's on our minds and that we will pass along information as we get it. Rebecca, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Davis, for clarifying that. I thought I did that. That there is a Pride committee, and that they're the ones who are creating the calendar. Amanda Smith represented them at the meeting, at the last Jedi meeting, and spoke to what is it that they were doing, and I did wonder about that. I wondered how, if anyway, the school was involved, and I didn't ask Amanda, but it sounded like there were lots of things going on with the library, and so yeah, I didn't ask those questions, but I wondered if was there any effort to reach out to the school community, to the principals, to find out if students were interested in just participating one way or the other.
One thing that I had planned to do is reach out to who is the faculty representative for the student, and I apologize, I'm forgetting the name of the student group, but is the student social justice group at Windsor?
Yes, it's a social justice group.
Is there a faculty representative that could be reached out to, or
Yeah,
might be a good point of
Ms.
contact?
Engwall, our biology teacher.
Okay.
Catherine Engwall.
Okay. So yeah, I think reaching out to Catherine Engwall and just having them convey to students that this is going on and seeing where there might be opportunities for collaboration, that could be a good start.
Good. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions about the Windsor Jedi Committee? Because I think it rolls naturally into the Declaration of Inclusion, which I am pleased to say I did remember, and I did write to the select board of West Windsor, and I gave them all of the pertinent information. I gave them, I sent them the declaration that Windsor adopted. I sent them the actual original Declaration of Inclusion. I sent them the advisory from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and then I sent them some articles about it, including Governor Scott's declaration of a statewide Declaration of Inclusion. So they were going to take it up at their next select board meeting, which is tonight. So we'll find out what the outcome of that is, and I'll hopefully, if those wheels have gotten turning, then soon here we'll be able to. Oh, and I also put it in the context of, our board wanting to have our board or district version of it, but not being able to without West Windsor being on board. So that's where that is. And that is the end of our discussion items. We've now gotten to the items for action, of which there are 3. The first is I will take a motion to appoint Sergio Simunovic to act as a third principal in our district. our fourth principal, I'm sorry, fourth principal in our district, a third principal at our Windsor school. Amy?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Bill, how do you vote? Are you here? There you are.
Aye.
Okay. Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So welcome to our new principal. Our fourth, okay, if it's not a what happens after triumvirate? It's a what?
Call it
Oh,
a quartet.
Squad.
Quartet, I like that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
got
a
a
quartet.
musical ring to it.
That's better. Okay. All right. Next is I'll take a motion to grant permission for the 5th and 6th graders at Albert Bridge School to go on their field trip out of state.
So moved.
Second.
Amy seconds.
Okay. And okay. Bill, how do you vote on the?
Aye.
Okay. Nancy
Aye.
and Davis
Aye.
and Rebecca
Aye.
and Amy.
Aye.
And I am also an aye. And that leaves us with interdistrict choice. I'll take a motion to allow the interdistrict choice committee to continue to pursue that endeavor on our behalf. How's that sound?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Is that specific enough? Okay. All right. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And so we have adopted the appointment of Mr. Simunovic, permission for Albert Bridge School 5th and 6th grade trips out of state, and interdistrict wide school choice. And now we are at the next agenda, which we've agreed we're going to talk about the middle school model, right? Or did you want to do that at the SU level, David? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I think that task force meets after the SU meeting, so we'll do it. I'll do it at all the board meetings in June, including the SU.
Okay. And let's see. Well, maybe we could talk about Rebecca. I see your hand.
I would like to see a breakdown of where our high school students are going. So I'm not asking specifically, but I would like to know, if you have however many are going to a 4-year college, however many are going to an associate's, a community college, if someone is going into the workforce, and if someone is taking a gap year. I would imagine those numbers should be clear by then.
Okay. And let's see. We'll have maybe we could have an update on Pride Month and in the context of Jedi. How about that?
I don't, what did you just say?
Maybe we can have an update on the.
Oh, okay, their presentation, okay.
Yeah. Nancy, I see your hand.
An update on the intra-school choice.
Yep. David, I see your hand.
Yeah, I don't know if we already did this, but just sort of do a little bit of planning for maybe a summer retreat in July or August. I know you've done that. We've done it at the SU level, but we've also done it at the individual district levels too. Just a little more time to talk generally.
Yep. And
Yeah, I think it was late July last year because that was the first event that I was with you all for.
right.
Right, and we were at the outside classroom.
Yeah,
We had yummy snacks.
we did.
And Bill had river stones or something.
What was the one right before that, Elizabeth? I'm trying to take a couple of notes here too.
The one right before the planning for summer retreat update on interdistrict choice.
Okay.
Do you think we could have an update from our principals as part of the report on how many teachers we lost and how many we retained for the next year?
It's pretty doable.
Okay. Okay. Nancy, I see your hand.
I forgot to put it down.
Okay. And Rebecca, did you lower your hand too?
I did, but I just wanted to ask, your question is a good one, but I'm just not satisfied with the number, and I'm wondering if there can also just be a little conversation as to why did we lose them?
Yes, I think that's great, Rebecca. Thank you for that. Katie, do you think we could get the same kind of status update from special ed for our district?
I can, yes. I think for the, it's somewhat, we've actually lost very few or had people change positions.
Excellent.
And I can give general responses of why sort of people go. But we still are seeking several positions. Many we didn't fill from last year that we're still seeking. So I think that I can certainly do that next time. And I think I have one ready for doing for the SU as well. Plus hopefully some new hires, which is a good thing.
Good.
So, and I know Katie will do some of that at the SU meeting too. So Elizabeth, is it my understanding that could come under the principal's report? That kind of stuff. Yeah, good.
Yep. All right, let's leave it at that for now. I'm sure there will be opportunities to add other things, but we'll leave it for that right now. And that is still the first Monday of the month, which will be what we'll go back to 6:30 if that's all right with everybody, unless anybody has an objection. Okay. Let's see.
I think that's the 6th.
Thank you. 6. That's easy. And I will definitely 100% positively be in person next month. So,
Just a moment. Aren't we the second Monday?
yes. Thank you. 6/13.
I was thinking we were the second, but everyone was so, yes, we're the first, that I thought
I thought there was conversation, Amy, though, at some point
Yes,
for it to be on the first, and I think we did, so maybe
it
I'm
was
wrong,
on the
but I
first.
thought we did the second because we wanted to have everyone at the meeting. So are we the first or are we the second?
No, we were the first last year and we moved to the second because we in West Windsor don't ever get to attend our select board meetings.
Okay.
That was why.
On June 13th, it's Windsor's 8th grade graduation from 6
Oh,
to 7.
Siri.
Elizabeth,
I'm sorry, say that again.
on June 13th, it's Windsor's 8th grade graduation from 6 to 7. I have that on my calendar.
Oh,
I would miss that meeting.
Could we do the first for next month and go back to the second the following month? I mean, I don't know.
does anybody have any objection to that? Keeping it on 6/6,
Sounds good to me.
6622.
Does David have another, is there another school board that you need to be in on the?
Not that evening.
Let me look and see, but I don't think so. 6/6, did we say?
Yes.
It's open.
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, so let's do it on 6/6 instead of the 13th, and 6:30 instead of 6. And that's it. All right. Then I will. Do we need an executive session, anybody? Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second. It's always you and me, Nancy.
Okay, Bill, how do you vote? Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Nancy, how do you vote?
Nay, no, really I.
Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Amy, how do you vote?
I.
And I am an aye. And I thank you for all of your time and thoughtfulness and support. Thank you.
We're glad to have Elizabeth still on the board. It was very interesting.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.